The teenagers think they're untouchable hackers. They've just broken into the Pentagon's classified database from the public library. The quiet librarian watching them isn't calling security. She's calculating how many federal crimes they've committed. Welcome to the last salute. That harmless librarian earning minimum wage is actually Margaret Cipher Chen, former NSA's most elite codebreaker who cracked enemy encryption for 12 years. If you want to see how she turns the Dewey Decimal System into a cyber warfare operation, smash that subscribe button right now, because these teenage hackers just triggered someone who helped design the security systems they think they've beaten. And Margaret is about to teach them that some knowledge is too dangerous for amateur hour. What city are you watching from? This digital war is about to go global. Millbrook Public Library, computer section. While most people saw outdated terminals and slow internet, Margaret Chen saw something different. The perfect surveillance hub for monitoring cyber threats in real time. For 5 years, Margaret had been the head librarian, earning $32,000 annually to help citizens check out books and access public computers. Quiet, helpful, invisible. The kind of government employee who processed interlibrary loans and organized community reading programs. What the town didn't know was that Margaret Chen's last government job had paid $180,000 annually, plus classified bonuses for work that officially didn't exist. Senior cryptanalyst, Margaret Cipher Chen, National Security Agency. 12 years of breaking enemy codes, intercepting foreign communications, and designing encryption systems that protected America's most sensitive secrets. Her algorithms were still being used to secure everything from military communications to nuclear facility networks. Margaret's specialty had been pattern recognition in seemingly random data. She could spot terrorist communications hidden in social media posts, identify foreign intelligence operations disguised as spam emails, and trace cyber attacks through a dozen proxy servers back to their original source. Her last assignment had been tracking a Chinese cyber warfare unit that was stealing American defense technology. Margaret had spent 18 months building the case, identifying the operatives, mapping their network. Then politics intervened. The investigation was shut down for diplomatic reasons. 12 Chinese agents walked free with terabytes of stolen American secrets. Margaret had resigned in protest and taken the first job that would let her disappear. Small-town librarian in a place where the biggest cyber threat was teenagers trying to bypass content filters to access social media. Until today. If you're already seeing where this digital showdown is heading, hit that subscribe button now. Because when retired NSA meets amateur hackers, the lesson is about to be brutal. The 3 teenagers had been coming to the library every day after school for 2 weeks. Tyler Morrison, Emma Rodriguez, and Jake Kim. 16 years old, brilliant, and absolutely convinced they were the smartest people in any room. To most adults, they looked like typical high school students doing homework on the public computers. To Margaret, they looked like a developing security threat. She'd been monitoring their activities through the library's network logs. What started as harmless attempts to bypass social media filters had escalated dramatically. They'd moved from accessing blocked websites to probing network vulnerabilities, then to attempting unauthorized access to secure systems. Today, they'd crossed a line that would have triggered federal investigations if anyone else had been watching. "Check this out," Tyler whispered, showing his screen to Emma and Jake. "I'm inside the Department of Defense personnel database." Margaret's blood went cold. These kids weren't just playing around anymore. They'd successfully penetrated classified government systems using public library computers. Emma leaned over Tyler's shoulder. "Can you access the Pentagon files?" "Already there," Tyler grinned. "Look at this. Classified mission reports from Afghanistan. This stuff is worth millions to the right buyers." Margaret had heard enough. These teenagers had just committed enough federal crimes to spend the next 20 years in prison. Worse, they were talking about selling classified military intelligence, but calling the FBI would mean exposing her own identity. Margaret Chen, small-town librarian, wasn't supposed to recognize classified file structures or understand the implications of what these kids had found. Margaret Cipher Chen, former NSA Codebreaker, had different options. Are you ready to see a librarian unleash 12 years of NSA training? Subscribe and keep watching. This cyber warfare lesson is about to be legendary. Margaret walked quietly to the reference desk and activated systems that the Millbrook Public Library didn't officially possess. Hidden servers, encrypted communication arrays, and network analysis tools that she'd installed during her first week on the job. Small-town librarian was perfect cover for monitoring cyber threats. No one questioned why the head librarian needed advanced computer equipment or why she worked late nights cataloging digital resources. Margaret opened a secure terminal and began tracing the teenager's hack in real time. What she found was worse than she'd expected. They weren't amateur hackers stumbling into classified systems. Someone had been teaching them. Their attack vectors were too sophisticated, their target selection too specific. These kids were being used as proxies by a foreign intelligence operation, the same Chinese cyber warfare unit Margaret had been tracking before her resignation. Through the library's cameras, Margaret watched Tyler navigate deeper into Pentagon systems. The kid was talented, but he was following a script. Someone else was directing this operation, using American teenagers as unwitting assets. Margaret's NSA training kicked in. This wasn't a prank that had gone too far. This was active espionage using minors as cutouts. If the Chinese handlers decided the kids knew too much, 3 teenagers from Millbrook were going to disappear. Margaret opened a new terminal window and began typing code that she hadn't used in 5 years. Time to remind the world why they'd called her Cipher. What Margaret did next redefined the concept of information warfare. First, she isolated the teenagers' computers from the internet without them noticing. To Tyler, Emma, and Jake, it looked like they were still connected. In reality, Margaret had trapped them in a sandbox environment where she controlled everything they saw. Then she began reverse engineering their attack, following their connection back through proxy servers, encrypted channels, and anonymization networks to find the real puppet masters. The trail led exactly where Margaret expected, a server farm in Shenzhen operated by Unit 61398 of the People's Liberation Army. The same cyber warfare unit she'd been hunting for years. Margaret smiled for the first time in months. These weren't just hackers stealing secrets. They were her old enemies, and they'd just made a critical error, operating in her territory. "Tyler," Margaret called out from the reference desk. "Could you come here for a moment?" Tyler looked up from his screen, annoyed at being interrupted during his epic hack. "What's wrong with your computer?" Margaret asked innocently. "Nothing's wrong. It's working fine." Margaret turned her monitor so Tyler could see it. On her screen was a live view of Tyler's desktop. Every keystroke, every file access, every supposed secret government database he thought he was infiltrating. Tyler's face went white. "How are you doing that?" "The same way I've been monitoring your illegal activities for the past 2 weeks," Margaret replied calmly. "Sit down, Tyler. We need to talk." Emma and Jake realized something was wrong. They tried to leave, but Margaret had already locked down the library's exit systems. Emma Rodriguez, 16 years old, lives at 1247 Oak Street with her grandmother. Jake Kim, also 16 honor roll student, worried about college applications. Tyler Morrison, expelled from 2 previous schools for computer incidents that were never fully investigated. The teenagers stared at Margaret in shock. "Who are you?" Emma whispered. "Someone who's very disappointed that 3 brilliant kids are being used as expendable assets by foreign intelligence services," Margaret replied. "If this cyber warfare showdown is blowing your mind, subscribe to The Last Salute right now. The conclusion is going to redefine everything you think about librarians." Margaret showed the teenagers exactly what they'd stumbled into. Not government databases, but carefully constructed honeypots designed to identify and track foreign cyber operations. "You didn't hack the Pentagon," Margaret explained. "You walked into a trap that's been running for 3 years. Every classified file you accessed was bait. Every piece of intelligence you thought you stole was deliberately planted. Tyler's world collapsed. But the mission reports, the secret files, fiction, written by NSA psychological operations specialists to look authentic while revealing nothing valuable. Margaret pulled up the real data flows, but your attempts to access them have been tracked, recorded, and traced back to their source. On Margaret's screen, she displayed the complete network map she'd built over the past 2 weeks. The Chinese operation, the proxy servers, the handler communications, everything. The people who've been teaching you aren't hackers, they're intelligence officers. And once they realized their operation was compromised, they would have eliminated the evidence, including you. Emma started crying. Are we going to prison? That depends, Margaret said. Are you willing to help me shut down the people who were using you? Over the next hour, Margaret walked the teenagers through a counterintelligence operation that would have impressed her former NSA colleagues. Using their existing connections to the Chinese handlers, they fed disinformation back through the network, false intelligence designed to expose the entire operation. The teenagers, under Margaret's guidance, became double agents. They continued their hacking activities while actually working to map and neutralize the foreign cyber warfare unit. 3 months later, the FBI announced the arrest of 12 Chinese intelligence operatives in a major cyber espionage case. The press release credited ongoing federal surveillance operations for the breakthrough. Margaret Chen returned to her duties as head librarian, checking out books, organizing reading programs, helping citizens access public computers. Her salary remained $32,000 annually, but the library's computer section became something unique, a training ground where Margaret taught information security to local teenagers, not for illegal hacking, but for defending American networks against foreign threats. Tyler, Emma, and Jake became her first students. By senior year, all 3 had received full scholarships to study cybersecurity at top universities. Their recommendation letters came from government agencies that couldn't officially acknowledge Margaret's existence. And in the quiet moments between helping patrons and processing book returns, Margaret continued her real work, monitoring cyber threats, protecting American secrets, and proving that the most dangerous defense systems sometimes hide behind library cards and late fees. Before you go, if this digital warfare story amazed you, subscribe to The Last Salute and hit that notification bell. Next week, the story of a dog walker who turned morning walks into a tactical rescue operation using pack coordination. Drop a comment about the most surprising person who's taught you something important. Until next time, this is The Last Salute, honoring the warriors who protect our secrets while organizing our knowledge.